On March 9, 2025, a 2019 RAV4 with 88,000 miles on it rolled into my shop with a complaint I hear almost every week now. Rough idle when cold, a little hesitation pulling away from stop signs, and fuel economy that had quietly slipped from 30 miles per gallon down to 25. The owner had done everything right. Oil changes on schedule, air filter clean, tires properly inflated. She had even paid another shop for a fuel system service 6 months earlier, and for a few weeks it helped. Then the symptoms crept back. She asked me the question every mechanic dreads, because the honest answer sounds like an accusation. She asked what she was doing wrong, and the truth was sitting in her purse, printed on a stack of gas receipts. Today, I am revealing which gas stations you should never use for your Toyota, why the problem has nothing to do with how sketchy a station looks, and why most Toyota owners are already filling up at the wrong pumps without any idea they are doing it. Because here is the part that surprised even me when I first dug into this years ago. The stations quietly damaging Toyota engines are not the rundown ones with flickering signs. Some of them are the busiest, most popular stations in town, and some of the cheapest gas in America is actually among the best you can buy. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how to tell the difference, and it will cost you almost nothing to get this right. Let me start with the myth that needs to die first, because it is the reason this problem hides so well. Most drivers believe gasoline is gasoline. They picture different companies refining different fuel, and they assume the expensive stations sell the good stuff while the cheap stations sell something watered down. That picture is almost completely wrong. In reality, the gasoline in your area mostly comes from the same regional pipelines and the same storage terminals. The tanker truck that fills the name brand station on one corner and the discount station across the street may have loaded base fuel from the very same terminal on the very same morning. The base gasoline is a commodity. It meets the same federal specifications no matter whose logo ends up on the pump. So if the base fuel is the same, where does the difference come from? It comes from a moment most drivers never think about. When that tanker truck loads up at the terminal, an additive package gets injected into the fuel, and that additive package belongs to the brand. This is where gasoline stops being a commodity and becomes a decision. Because the single most important ingredient in that package, at least as far as your Toyota's engine is concerned, is detergent. Not detergent like soap in your laundry. Chemical detergents engineered to survive inside a running engine and keep fuel injectors, intake valves, and combustion chambers from slowly coating themselves in carbon. And here is the uncomfortable truth almost nobody tells you at the pump. The government does require a minimum amount of detergent in every gallon of gasoline sold in the United States. That rule has existed since the mid-1990s. But that minimum was set for the engines of 30 years ago, and it was set as a floor, not a target. Toyota's own owner's manuals spell this out in plain language. They state that all gasoline sold in the United States contains minimum detergent additives under the EPA's lowest additive concentration program. And then, in the very next breath, Toyota strongly recommends something better. They recommend what is called top-tier detergent gasoline. Toyota did not just endorse this standard from the sidelines either. Toyota was one of the automakers that helped create it back in 2004. Alongside companies like GM, Honda, and BMW, precisely because they were watching engines come into dealerships with deposit problems the legal minimum detergent could not prevent. Top-tier fuel carries roughly 2 to 3 times the detergent concentration of that EPA floor. It also bans something most drivers have never heard of, a metallic octane additive called MMT that leaves deposits in the engine and can harm the emission system. Toyota specifically warns against fuel containing MMT because it can foul the catalytic converter and even trigger the check engine light. So, when I talk about stations you should never use for your Toyota, I am not talking about a secret blacklist of shady operators. I am talking about something much simpler and much more widespread. Any station whose fuel is not top-tier certified is selling you gasoline with the bare legal minimum of engine protection. And here is why the second half of my title matters. Most owners already buy their gas at these stations because the certification has nothing to do with price, location, or how nice the convenience store is. Plenty of premium-looking stations are not certified. And in one of the strangest twists in the entire fuel industry, some of the cheapest gas in the country, like the fuel at Costco, is fully top-tier certified. The good stuff is not the expensive stuff. The good stuff is the certified stuff. Now I know what some of you are thinking, because I hear it in my shop constantly. Detergent sounds like marketing. A few milligrams of chemicals in a gallon of gas, how much difference could that really make? For years, I half wondered the same thing. Then AAA did something the fuel companies never wanted to fund. They ran an independent laboratory test. They took gasolines off the market, some top-tier certified and some not, and ran an engine through the equivalent of 4,000 miles of driving on each fuel. Then they tore the engines down and weighed the carbon. The non-certified fuels left an average of 660 milligrams of deposits on each intake valve. The top-tier fuels left 34. That is not a rounding error. That is 19 times more carbon from the fuel most drivers are buying without a second thought. 4,000 miles is a few months of commuting. Now imagine what that gap looks like at 80,000 miles, which is exactly where that RAV4 in my bay was sitting. Let me connect this directly to your Toyota, because this is where it stops being abstract chemistry and starts being your engine. Many modern Toyota engines, including the ones in the RAV4, Camry, Highlander, and Tacoma, use direct injection, either alone or in Toyota's clever D4S dual injection system that combines direct and port injection. Direct injection is brilliant engineering. It sprays fuel straight into the combustion chamber at enormous pressure, which is a big reason your Toyota gets the fuel economy it does. But it comes with a known vulnerability. In a pure direct injection engine, fuel no longer washes over the backs of the intake valves the way it did in older engines, so deposits on those valves have nothing rinsing them away. And the injectors themselves have spray holes machined to tolerances finer than a human hair. It does not take a chunk of carbon to disturb them. It takes a film, a slow, invisible varnish that distorts the spray pattern from a fine mist into uneven droplets. And your Toyota will hide it from you. That is the part that gets people. The engine computer is very good at compensating. As deposits build, it quietly adjusts fuel trims, adapts timing, and smooths things over, the same way it papers over a dozen other slow problems. Nothing breaks. No warning light comes on. You just lose a little. A little fuel economy this year, a little crispness off the throttle next year, a cold start that sounds slightly less settled than it used to. Owners blame age. Owners blame winter fuel. Almost nobody blames the station they have been loyal to for 6 years, because the car never gave them a reason to. There is a second category of station I want you to avoid, and this one has nothing to do with detergent. Low-volume stations. Fuel sitting in an underground tank is not improving with age. Nearly all gasoline today contains ethanol, usually up to 10%, and ethanol loves water. It pulls moisture out of the air. In a busy station, the fuel turns over so fast, this never matters. In a station where the tanks sit half full for weeks, water can accumulate, and in bad cases, the ethanol and water can actually separate out of the gasoline entirely and settle at the bottom of the tank, right where the pickup sits. Sediment, rust from aging tanks, and that water layer are exactly the kind of thing your Toyota's fuel filter and injectors should never have to negotiate with. So my rule is simple. Buy your gas where the trucks are always coming and going. Fresh fuel is a feature, and busy stations sell it by accident. Now let me give you the honest caveats because I promised you real information, not fear. First, filling up at a non-certified station is not going to strand you on the highway. If you are on a road trip and the only station for 40 miles is not on the list, use it and do not think twice. This is about your primary fuel, the station you visit week after week, because carbon buildup is a habit problem, not an event problem. Second, if you have been running minimum detergent fuel for years, you have not necessarily doomed your engine. The same AAA research found that switching to top-tier fuel actually cleans existing deposits, cutting intake valve buildup by 45 to 72% over about 5,000 miles of driving. Your fuel can become your maintenance. Third, do not confuse any of this with octane. For most Toyotas, the manual calls for regular 87 octane, and pumping premium into a Camry that asks for regular buys you nothing. Octane is about resisting knock, not about cleanliness. A gallon of regular from a top-tier station protects your engine far better than a gallon of premium from a station that is not certified. Spend your money on detergent, not on octane your engine never asked for. So how do you actually tell which stations to use? This is the part that takes 30 seconds and pays you back for the life of the car. The Top Tier program keeps a public list of every licensed brand at toptiergas.com, and certified stations usually display a small top-tier logo somewhere on the pump or the price sign. In the United States, the list includes most of the big names you would expect: Chevron, Shell, Exxon, and Mobil. And it also includes the surprises I mentioned, like Costco, whose gas is routinely among the cheapest in any market it serves. AAA looked at pricing too, and across a full year, the average difference between certified and non-certified fuel came out to about 3 cents per gallon. On a Toyota with a 14.5-gallon tank, that is less than 50 cents per fill-up. Compare that to what my customer paid for that fuel system service that only worked until her next month of fill-ups undid it. And here is the uncomfortable truth about my side of the industry. Nobody in the repair business makes money telling you this. There is no invoice for choosing a different gas station. Induction cleaning services, injector cleaning, walnut blasting carbon off intake valves, those are billable. Standing at the pump reading a small logo is free, and free advice does not keep the lights on, so it rarely gets offered. I would rather you hear it from me now than from a service writer at 120,000 miles with an estimate in his hand. That RAV4 owner, by the way, did not need parts. We cleaned the throttle body, ran a proper polyethylamine-based cleaner through a tank, and I asked her to do exactly one thing differently: move her weekly fill-up from her usual station to the certified one a block further down the same road. 3 cents a gallon. 2 months later, she called to tell me the cold idle had settled down and her fuel economy was back within 1 mile per gallon of what the car did when it was new. Nothing was ever broken. Her engine was just being fed the legal minimum year after year, and it finally started keeping score. Your Toyota was engineered to run 300,000 miles, but it was engineered assuming you would feed it what Toyota recommends, and Toyota's recommendation is printed right there in the manual almost nobody reads. Check the list tonight. You may find out your regular station has been certified all along, and you can relax. Or you may find out, like most owners do, that the station you trusted has been doing the bare minimum the whole time, and the fix costs you pocket change and a slightly different left turn. If this changed where you are filling up next week, Hit like so more Toyota owners see it before their engines start keeping score too. Subscribe if you want the maintenance truths that dealerships have no reason to tell you. And drop a comment telling me which station you have been loyal to and whether it made the list, because I guarantee the answers are going to surprise half the people reading them. The most expensive gas is not the gas that costs the most per gallon. It is the gas that quietly costs you an engine.